All right, welcome back to today's video. Today, one thing I wanted to talk about, being distracted. Just this past week on Friday, something occurred, not a big deal. There was something like, I think I ran into a billing issue. It's amazing because I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what it was, but I remember it wasn't big, it wasn't huge. It was probably like a minor billing issue, like a denied claim, right? Something like that. Anyway, it happened late last week. And I can remember going into the weekend, throughout the weekend, feeling really distracted by this. If I was like, maybe out, I would be out on Friday or Saturday with my family, and I would find myself like thinking about this a lot. I was thinking about, how am I going to resolve it? What do I need to do to resolve it? And although this wasn't like a massive issue, like intellectually, I could tell you, I knew. Like, when I got back to work on Monday, I would, send an email, figure it out. I just found myself like really wanting to fix it right then and there. And I was with my family and had things to do. So it's not like I was, disrupt all that to sit down and kind of do it. Although I was tempted to do that. And it actually caused a little bit of like, I wouldn't call it distress, but, I was just distractible, right? Maybe not as present as I could have been. And, I find that people talk about distractibility all the time, right? But in this specific context, what I'm talking about is kind of like those, I guess it's, as small business owners, right? Whether you're a small business owner or owning a private practice, that's a small business, as I say a lot. There's all these different tasks that you are responsible for that you probably were not responsible for if you worked for a corporation or an agency before, right? And I don't know, and these tasks vary depending on what you do and whatever it may be. But for me, for example, like when I worked at a hospital setting, if there were insurance issues, that was not my scope of responsibility for the most part, like denied claims, all that stuff. There was hospital staff that dealt with just that. And when you work for kind of a corporation or an agency, there's like a lot of kind of structures built in, right? And so there's a lot that you kind of like have at least this was what it was like for me. I had my role, I had my responsibilities. At times those would bleed over into personal life and things like that. But for the most part, I knew what I was responsible for. And I was able to kind of wrap that up in the work week for the most part, right? But now, owning my own business, I can always be doing something. And there's always little tasks popping up. And as I talk now, the point of this video is not so much to talk about the different things that pop up. Really, what I wanted to sit down and talk about was distractibility, right? Now, I think sometimes the object of the distraction are these little things that pop up, and that's kind of what happened this past weekend. And maybe we'll touch on all that stuff another time, the things popping up. But in terms of distractibility, I wanted to talk because a lot of people go into private practice kind of with this idea that they're going to have better work-life balance. They are going to, work this amount of hours and have this kind of free time. And there's a lot of kind of like thoughts about that. And you can work towards that without a doubt in private practice. It's more feasible to have work-life balance for some people than if you're at an agency. The reason for that is you have more control over the hours and the structure. But one thing I've learned in my experience as a private practice person is that there's a lot. Number one, it's your own business. So your investment in it might be more so than if it's a corporation or an agency, that kind of thing, because it's your own, right? It kind of hinges on you. You upkeep it, you run it, so it's your own business. And so there's that element of it. And because of that, I've noticed that I want to do a really good job. I want to do right by my clients. I want to make sure the administrative stuff works well. I want to do right by my therapist. And so in that regard, it's really hard to turn that off. And I don't really turn that off, right? In many ways, I think that is one of the things as a business owner, you are always kind of thinking about it, right? Now that can coincide with having work-life balance. But I find that these little administrative tasks, right? These things that kind of pop up that are a little bit, kind of like unresolved things, those are the things that can kind of take away from being present in the moment. And so I just wanted to share with you, one, I want to normalize that. That happens to, I think, a lot of us, right? Where we get distracted by these things. And then I also kind of want to share a little bit about how I kind of manage it and handle it as someone who's been in private practice for a little while now and has a group practice. One of the things I do is every week, I sit down and I try to plan out my week on the calendar a week at a time. And what that does, that kind of gives me an inventory of what my week looks like, where I have free kind of blocks and things like that, right? Kind of a bird's eye view, basically. And so what I try to do is allow buffer points in that schedule. So when something like a denied claim pops up, or I have to deal with a phone call. If you watch my last video, I was on the phone for 110 minutes with New Jersey. That being said, I kind of leave chunks of time available so that if something comes up, I can get it done within the framework of my week. And that works really well. But there are times when you get something that happens on a Friday afternoon, right? Or something like that. And when it comes to that, the first thing I do is I acknowledge to myself that this is going to be hard for me to kind of let go of, right? It's going to be hard for me to kind of let this sit until Monday. And so I'll do a couple things from there. One is I will be just acutely aware that I need to be mindful not to kind of log into the computer if I don't need to, right? Mindful of the fact that I might feel distracted at certain points and to kind of refocus my attention at whatever I'm doing. And the whole practice there is that I'm not kind of getting distracted and then trying to resolve, kind of like move away from what I'm doing and trying to, kind of fix that. So that's one thing that I do. And then the other thing is sometimes I will, just because I know it's hard, sometimes I'll build in half an hour, 20 minutes to just get it done, right? I know that might sound paradoxical, but for me, rather than just fighting that urge, sometimes I'll build it in, right? And in that regard, I say, okay, you know what? I know now that, I can't deal with this now on Friday night, but, I have 25 minutes on Sunday. I can take care of it then, before the work week starts. And that also works well. But, I think we all deal with these things differently. But yeah, I think this is just a couple things I wanted to share about distractibility, being a small business owner, that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe this was helpful for you. Maybe not. Either way, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.